Alright guys, so one big thing that I noticed as I was kind of messing around was that we had created a sheet that let us look at the image picker, but we also created a sheet to create the submit recipe page. And the two sheets side by side, when you put them right on top of each other, actually only lets the second one show up. So I click submit recipe, but no longer can I click photo library like this. So what I need to do is I actually need to move where they're located. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the dot sheet. So this is the first dot sheet. Okay, and that one is going to go, I'm going to put that directly at the end of the button for submit recipe. And I'm going to have this one say review recipe, okay? Because that's what that really is. And then we have the dot sheet as presented show image picker. I'm going to copy all, or cut all of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find at the very top where I had right here. So this Z stack contained the H stack that had the button, that top right button, okay? And then it also contained the V stack that had the actual, this right here, okay? So I'm going to close that back up. So I'm going to put it at the back end of that Z stack. So now if I save it and I run it, okay, we'll find that it actually works out just fine. Both sheets are able to be viewed. So this is kind of allowing you to show multiple sheets at once. So look at that and make sure that worked. So I can go here, I can pick some images, and I can pick a few different ones here. Okay, and then I can also still do the review recipe. All right, so the next thing I want to do here is I just wanted to come here where I have the done button. Okay, so done. All right, and I just wanted it to say done. Images. And I'm going to make that say images.count self. I just wanted to, notify me of how many images I have that I picked. All right, so that's that. And then looking at the list of things we need to do. So we have some pretty dense things that need to get finished up. So we need to continue to clean up and modify the recipe post page, or that review page. So look at the review page. This needs to be cleaned up, all right? So the first thing I'll do is I need to clean up the ingredients and the steps. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to come over to the struct enums and classes. And for steps, I actually wanted to get rid of the, where is it, for steps and ingredients. I wanted to get rid of order number, okay, because it introduces all sorts of complications when we start having the rearrangement of items using the list, which we do right here. It really introduces all sorts of complications here and here, okay. So we're going to get rid of order number, and we'll do the same thing. We're not actually going to end up needing it based on how we save things, so it should be fine. So we'll do that, and then we'll go back over here. And I think we used it again here, order number. Let's just double check. So we don't need this piece either now. We can just go ahead and get rid of that. So for now, we're just going to have it say this step.direction. Okay. Or dot description, all right? The next place we had it was down here. Order number, we're not going to need that anymore. Okay. And then lastly, right here, order number. We don't need that at all for step or for ingredient. So just find, we need to make sure we have the proper number of parentheses there. So save it, and that should be good to go. All right, save it, and just, we got to get rid of that comma. Okay, so now those are good to go, and then what we'll do now is we'll save that, and when we run it, we should find that we have no issues moving these steps up and down when we use the move and delete functions. So the next thing I want to do is I want to start feeding the images into the review page. So let's go ahead and actually do that before we sit there and analyze the other one. So for this submit recipes page, the other thing or the modify recipe page, what I should say, the modify recipe page will also be it's essentially a review recipe page. So it'll be the same thing that'll show up when you choose a recipe and say edit it, if you're editing your own old recipes. So I need another variable that comes here. So we have binding recipe post and we have binding images. Okay. And if I go over to the previous space, a new post view, we're actually going to use the identifiable UI image structure. So it's going to look exactly like this. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll go back over here and we'll find where we created the modify recipe post, and we'll say images self dot. Okay. And then the next thing we'll do, and we should be able to run that now, and we won't see any visible changes. But yes, we need to just do that. But what that should do for us now is that should allow us to start using the images. Let's go back over here. Let's try that again. That should allow us to start feeding the images forward and creating the same sort of swipeable image viewer up top that we had on the other page over here. So if we add recipe, so now we have the image data passed over. So now we're just going to go ahead and display it. So we'll do the same thing again. We're essentially going to come here, and we're going to take this H stack. I'm just going to literally copy the entire H stack that had it. And then I'm going to put it right here. And now it should look pretty much exactly the same. The only difference is this show sheet stuff. So we need to get rid of, let's get rid of this whole thing. Okay. We'll get rid of that, and we'll just say text no, please go back and select at least one image. Okay, so save it and run it, and let's see what happens. Should look pretty much like what we were hoping for. Should look a lot like the page that preceded it. So now, if I come here and say review recipe, please go back and select at least one image. Okay, that's a little ugly, but if I at least come here now, pick an image, let's pick a few different ones. So also this is now a nice little touch here, okay? So I see review recipe, and it looks exactly the same. That's perfect. Okay, that's exactly what we wanted. And we're going to paginate these so that you can only swipe completely either here or all the way here, not some like halfway stuff like this. Okay, it's more of a detail later. We'll take care of that though. All right, so let's go back here. Add some ingredients. Let's just say 1 cup of flour. Okay, I'm going to say 800. Let's say 800 grams of flour. Okay. Maybe 400 grams of water. Okay. Let's say add some steps. Say mix the flour and the water. Okay, and then let's say maybe knead dough. Okay, and then review recipe. Here they are. So it'll let us modify the order here. Okay, flour, water. All right, and we can do the same thing with these. Okay, so same principle. We do need to fix that. These two are actually kind of intermingling, so there must be something wrong on the modify review post, this page right here. So we must have somewhere where, so this one says steps, editing steps. We have this bound to steps. Okay. And then if we look up here, we also have, it's hard to tell exactly where that's coming from at first glance, but we'll get around to that and we'll figure out what that is. All right. So carrying on forward, now this page is kind of slowly coming together. Okay, we're gonna have to name the masterpiece. We're gonna name it. We'll say this can be called spaghetti. Okay. This is my first recipe. Okay. And then we're going to have to add a button down here for the actual submission. It's one that looks a lot like the review recipe button, okay? So we're going to recreate that essentially now we're going to have to recreate the whole recipe we just started building up. But I'm going to go to the new post view and I'm just going to grab that button. Okay. I liked its formatting. So I'm going to take that whole button. Okay. And then I'm going to put it right at the bottom. Modify view. Close up that H stack, that other H stack, and right at the bottom we'll put that button. Okay, and we'll put the submit recipe function. All right, and let's go ahead and just double check. Let's go to the submit recipe function down here. And so looking at this function is essentially only really dependent on this clear page function as well. It's the only thing we'll need to copy over with it. So I'm going to take the submit recipe function, and I'm going to take this, the clear page function. I'm going to cut all that. Okay, and I'm going to go back over to the modify recipe post. Okay, and then at the bottom of the modify recipe post structure, I'm going to put those two functions in there. I'll just need to get rid of the half mode. These are kind of irrelevant. We didn't really need those anyway, because technically every time the half modal opened, those were already resetting, so it was a little redundancy. But I'm going to need to take the binding recipe post and put that inside of new recipe post. Okay, and there's another place where we used it right here. So this recipe post equals binding recipe post. Okay, we'll need to import sp alert. Okay, and from the looks of it, we will also need to make sure that we go over to new post view. Go all the way to the top. We'll grab the environment object. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm in the home view by accident. Got to go to the modify view. We'll put that at the top. Okay. And then let's make sure we didn't miss anything else down here. Self-done environment. All right, everything else looks good down there. So opening up that VStack, let's see what its complaint was. Doesn't really seem like. Let's double check down here. Yes. So we need to get rid of this button now should say submit. Okay. And then we don't need this sheet anymore. I'm not going to be showing ourselves. It's just going to execute the submit recipe function. So now, let's say upon finishing the submit recipe function, we will also hide this modal actually. So self dot. Okay, and then we'll actually put one more thing up here. The binding var is shown. That's going to be a bool. Okay. And then we'll set at the end of submit recipe if that's successful. Very end when it says recipe submitted successfully. After clear page, it'll do self dot is shown equals false. Okay, so it should actually hide itself. So now we'll go over to the new post view. Make sure that when we showed this modal, we pass that forward. So right here is shown, and we're going to feed it the show underscore review sheet. Okay, so self dot. Okay, and when we run that, that should work just fine. All right, so let's see what happens. All right, come here. Let's add some photos. Okay, so let's pick a couple of different photos. There's 3 photos. Okay, let's add an ingredient. Let's say 1 cup of flour. Let's say 1 cup of wheat. Okay, and then let's say 2 tablespoons of salt. I just want to make sure I have at least a couple things in here, so I know the array pieces are working fine. Add a step. Let's just say chop potato. Okay. Pour salt. Review recipe. Name your masterpiece. This, say, spag, and then the description would be first one, submit. All right, so it's trying, but it's having an issue. Okay, had an issue grabbing, so we're looking through here and saying no observable object of global environment found. So let's figure out what the issue is right there. All right, so a little workaround we can actually do here is the following. We can actually take the entire clear page function and submit recipe function. We'll take them back to the new post view, and you'll see why. So I'm going to go over to the new post view. I'm going to put them back at the bottom here. Okay, and then that means I'm going to have to go through and just fix a couple different things. I'm going to need to fix, I think it's primarily this new recipe post. So this is irrelevant now. The check success, we don't need to hide is shown again. If anything, it needs to be self.show review sheet. That's the one that's going to be false. Okay, now this is going to be the new recipe post. We had changed it earlier. And then we had one other thing, if I remember correctly. One other thing had been different. Yes, new recipe post up here. Okay, so now that we've fixed those two things, what we can do is if we go back to the modify recipe post page, we can leave the recipe bound, and if the recipe is bound, we can still make all the modifications. But what we'll do is we'll take this button, the submit button, okay, we'll do something a little sneaky. We'll grab it, and we'll actually go over to where we created the sheet in the new post view. So we created the sheet right here, and that sheet will show a VStack, and that VStack will be the modify recipe post page, and then a button directly underneath it. Okay, and so if we run it now, it should look exactly the same, but we can do everything we want to do from this page now. So it should work exactly the same though. So now we'll just double check what this page looks like before we keep going. So we got the same thing, we still need to clean that up. Why don't we just clean that up before we keep going forward? So modify recipe post. We go up here, we have this dot frame. We'll just do the same thing. We'll just give it a dot frame height of 300. Dot frame height 300. Okay. Now we'll save that, we'll run it. And that should have cured that issue. Okay, so now that finished building, let's go and look at it. So add recipe. So let's go ahead and add an ingredient. Say 1 cup of flour. Okay, 1 tablespoon salt. 1. Add some steps. Chop onion. Peel potato. Okay. Let's see what happens if we come here and say submit. Oh, add a photo. All right. So we'll say add photo, photo library, pick a couple photos, 3 images. Let us review the recipe. Okay, we'll name it spag. Say first meal. Submit. Runs through. Recipe submitted successfully. Boom, everything worked perfectly, and we got to have a review page. All right, so let's go to the internet here, and we will check out console, Firebase. All right, we'll go to recipe to make sure that worked. Now let's go to our database and recipes. All right, and let's try to find the last one we just made. So we don't have to search too much. I'm gonna go here and see what the ID was. All right, so it's in the 94A1. Here it is. The description is first meal. We have posting user didn't go up actually. That needs to be fixed. That's pretty interesting. And it says spag, so that's good. Let's figure out why posting user didn't say anything. That is really interesting, actually. So posting user. look for that. It's going to be under the new recipe page. Okay. Let's see this recipe post.id. So what it needs to do is it's trying to create the recipe. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Let's figure out where that is, because it obviously worked. It's definitely working if I check the user now and if I can find myself. And I see 94A, so I'm right there. So that one is definitely there. Let's just find where it had that. So new recipe post equals. So this recipe post equals new recipe post. Okay, there we go. It was never put in there to begin with, so if we look at new recipe post, up here, we should have actually, and the reason it was never put in there, this is a really interesting issue. So it was never put in there because I can't technically put it in here by just saying it's going to be equal to, env.current user dot dot establish ID. It's not going to like that because this is in the same level of hierarchy as the actual declaration of environment object. So I left it as blank. A really good catch. So you scroll all the way to the bottom. When we needed to add one little thing. So this recipe post equals new recipe post. First thing we'll do is we'll just say new recipe post is going to be, or dot established ID, dot user. The posting user is going to be equal to self.env.current user.established ID. And that should remedy that issue, okay? So if I save it and I run it, I'm not going to go through and make a full recipe. I'm just going to add one new recipe and make sure that that recipe shows my published ID. Okay, but let's make sure we weren't missing anything else in there while we're here. So we got a description, we got an ID, we got our ingredients, we got our steps. Okay, we got our title, the number of likes. The only thing we're missing was that posting user. All right, not sure what that was. So when I got that error, I just kind of I quit this and then I reran it and everything worked well. So just add a picture, photo library. Okay, done. Review recipe. Name your masterpiece. This is the name. Submit. Okay. And then that one was ID number. There it is, 76B. Okay. So let's just find 76B really quick. This is the name, posting user. That's perfect. D6E. Let's make sure that's me. Yep, that's me. All right, and I see it here, 76B as well. All right, so in the next video, we'll keep on moving forward. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.